So today, right, we have gone, like, the whole country, the whole of England. I don't know what's happening in Wales and Ireland. Apparently Scotland had it a couple of weeks ago. But we've gone into mandatory fast wearing in mops. Mask wearing in shops. That came into... I say law. There is no law that makes it mandatory, but it's been called by the government today as being mandatory that you must wear masks in shops. Now, obviously, people like Tesco and Sainsbury's have come out and said, like, we're not going to enforce it and whatever. My local shop up the road is a co-op. Now, last night I was fretting when I went to bed. Yes, I was fretting because I'm like, right, well, what am I going to say? Because there are people that are out there. I'm not frightened of coronavirus, not frightened of the police that much, but I am frightened of your every Joe pod on the street that is going to attack you verbally because of your decision. Like, because they believe what they've been told on the telly and all of this fandango. And there are people who are very thingy about that. And I was like, well, what if the shop, when I go in, like, what if they're like, no, you have to wear a mask? Now, obviously, you know I have a mask. I've got a surgical mask. I've worn it many times. The first of which I wore to save me from... when my son nearly set fire to the kitchen, and the kitchen was full of smoke because he nearly set fire to the kitchen. So, like, we all wore one, and on my Facebook page, you'll see a photograph. On my photographs, there's a photograph of me and my two sons all wearing surgical masks. Very thankful for them. Back in the day, I bought 100 of them from the 99p shop, and I'm thinking that I threw a lot of them away because I can't find them for shit. But it's like, I don't believe they work anyway, so, like, if I just put them on my face, what's it to matter? There are people out there with cloth face masks on. They don't protect against a fart, as you know, if you've been stood behind somebody who had a fart. They don't protect against a fart. Virus particles are way smaller than that. Cloth masks ain't doing anything, right? That's just a thing. That's what happens, right? But I've got these surgical ones, and because I don't believe they work anyway, I don't mind using the same one every time I go out, right? Because nowadays it costs you £3 for 3. So they're £1 each, where I got 100 for £1 and had a penny change. People are making money out of this shit. That's by the by. So, like, last night I got all this stuff in my head. How do I get past this? And I was like, well, you could just say I've got a medical exemption. Because if you say to somebody, I've got a medical exemption, and they say, what is it? They legally can't ask you that question. You have no legal right to answer that question. Like, literally. So if they said... like, if you said I've got a medical exemption and they said, what is it? You're like, well, I legally don't have to answer this question. Buff, you're allowed in. But I didn't want any of this crap on the door, and it was bothering me. Because even though I know a lot more than people who just watch the telly do, so, like, I'd got some facts there to be able to say... you know, like, this reduces your oxygen intake level, you breathing in your own CO2, that kind of thing. That's just basic stuff. Then, obviously, there's the fact that the government have said these do no use whatsoever. And again, go on my Facebook wall, it's on there. My friend Sarah, I love you, Sarah, posted earlier on, like a montage of all the times that the government said that there is no real reason for this happening, and yet it's now mandatory. Not law. I have another friend, I think his name might have been Martin, and he said he'd bumped into some police people today, so he was questioning them, and they've said, no, it's not a law, it's a legislation. Now, if you basically went out there and you got nothing, you got no mask in your bag to fall back on, if it got shitty, if it got to the worst of the worst, and you said, call the police on me, you don't have to do it like, fucking bring the police on then. Fucking let's have it. You just say like, oh, I'm sorry, but I refuse to comply. Please call out the police. Right? You wouldn't get past any further than that, because they can't enforce it, right? So you'd go into the shop anyway. But if you had the bollocks and you were dealt with a knob, if there was you were talking to a knob, you could just say like, right, we'll call the police out on me, please. I'll wait here patiently until you do. The police won't come out, because the police are refusing to enforce it. But if they did come out and you're not causing any affray or anything, and they give you, and you still refuse, and the shop is making an example of you, like, you would be able to, if they're like, right, we're giving you this fine, then you say, right, I refuse to pay that fine, and you went in front of a court of law, they would throw it out, and you wouldn't have to pay the fine, because there was no law, that you've not broken a law, because there is no law in place for this. So like, this is, I'm like geeing myself up, like with all this knowledge in my pocket of like, right, okay, well, you know, like I know this stuff, didn't know a lot of it today, but like I know a certain amount of stuff, I'm going to stand my ground. Walked in there today, no mask, no bother whatsoever. Half the people in the shop weren't wearing masks. Over half of the staff in the shop weren't wearing masks. I bought my stuff, went to the guy at the till. He looked a bit pissed off, to be fair, but at the end of the day, I can't blame him. I'm sure it weren't me that did it, but if it is, sorry, I didn't say anything untoward. I just said so are you not enforcing the mask wearing then? And he's like, no, we can't. And he says like, but we do stock them. They're behind you if you'd like to buy some. And I'm like, what a bob. Like, and he just looked at me like, okay then, houseborn of Satan. And it's like, well, stand there behind your shop, slobber shield, and judge me for whatever, mate. But I'm breaking no laws by being in here, and like I said, half the people in there weren't wearing masks, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that as the days go on, more and more people are going, well, there are people not wearing masks, so maybe I can't wear my mask too. Maybe I can get away with not wearing my mask. Now, I've also yesterday I saw one, but today somebody on my friends list posted that he'd actually seen an old age pensioner pass out in the street that couldn't get enough oxygen. Yesterday on Facebook there was like a meme doing the rounds of this poor little old lady who was struggling for breath, brought a mask down to try and get some breath, and then ended up collapsed in a bush shelter. Because literally what is happening to us right now is wrong on so many levels, and the government have even admitted themselves that there is no proof whatsoever that any type of mask will protect you from any type of thing. Literally, just don't believe the hype. Have some faith. Because I think in a few days there's going to be so many people saying, why? What does my mask do if... And then we've got that to look forward to with the vaccine. It's like, well, if you think your mask don't work, because, what's the point of you wearing a mask if I don't wear a mask? That's your whole argument for vaccines on its head, because you're like, right, okay, well, I'll get a vaccine. But then, oh, shut up, Kerry-Ann. That's a whole different topic, and I think I just got it all about face. So we'll do that on a different day. But for right now, all I can say is just don't fall for it. because there will be people that will fall for it, and they will do so for several days, and then it'll just be like, well, other people can get away with this, so why can't I? And then we won't see a rise in cases because we're not doing anything differently. Leicester's still in lockdown. The rest of the country is still out of lockdown. Just today we got mask wearing, so maybe the death figures are going to change because we've started wearing masks. Don't know. I ain't going to follow it with any particular because I don't believe that the numbers that they're putting out anyway. But just to let you know, you can go out without a mask, and it's quite liberating. I was a bit frightened as I went round the shop. Yeah, I was frightened when I went in, and then I'm like, I saw this person wasn't wearing a mask, and then they walked past so that I could look round at the tills. The people behind the tills weren't wearing a mask, and I just went round and I saw this. I made eye contact with this guy who'd just been readjusting his bollocks, and he got like a mask on, and we turned around and we like locked eyes, and whether he was like, shit, she just caught me readjusting my nuts, or whether he was like, shit, she's looking at me wearing a mask. But he certainly weren't looking down at me. He was looking embarrassed. He was looking like, oh shit, don't look at me. But I didn't feel any of that. I didn't have anybody looking at me like I'd got some kind of disease. It was all kind of fine. And it will be kind of fine because, like I say, it's not a law. You aren't beholden to anybody for this. It's literally just a suggestion. And as Harry Hill used to say, the power of suggestion. It's going to get better. Hold in there.